Boom, Getting Uncomfortable podcast. I am your host, Eric Uresk, and I am here with my wife, Azimah.
Hi.
And yeah, so we're going to join you guys today. And fellas, today I'm going to do you guys a big fucking favor. I'm going to explain a concept that I'm not great at. Sometimes I do it pretty good. Sometimes I fail at it miserably. But something that could really change the dynamic of your relationship with your lady. And even ladies can make use of this as well. They're usually a little bit better at it than we are, naturally, in my experience. But we're going to talk about the concept of holding space for your partner, okay? And it probably sounds like some stupid new age hippie shit, and it did to me the first time that I heard it. I think the first time I came across this, other than hearing it from some new age crystal-y people that, I was like, yeah, whatever, hold space, hold my dick. I was kind of turned off by it, but I read a book by David Deida. I don't know if I'm saying his name correct, but he has a few books out, and the one that I read, and my wife read a few of his as well, is The Way of the Superior Man. And that's the first time I got to look at the idea of holding space and what that means and how it can be effective. And so we'll kind of get into that a little bit. So what holding space isn't is when my wife has a problem. Well, you tell him what holding space isn't. Tell him what it looks like when I'm fucking it up.
When you're asking me what's wrong, but then when I try to tell you, you're telling me what's wrong. And I don't know, it's just more of like being reactive as opposed to listening,
right,
and hearing me out, right? And I think it goes both ways too sometimes when I'm in those states of like resistance or reaction, and you're trying to explain to me something, but I want to be right, and I want to hear the things that I want to hear to make me feel good or to make me be right, and then it's not aligned with what you're trying to say, and then that's where the friction comes in.
Sure. Yeah, so you start to get into understanding, and we can argue about this all day, and I'm happy to have dialogue with anybody in the comments, but as far as I understand, there's a masculine energy and there's a feminine energy, and you could be a feminine man and you could be a masculine woman, and that's cool, right? But there are different energies. There's a masculine energy and there's a feminine energy, and women that are feminine are not like us, like I can't expect my wife to hold to the same logic and the way that I go about handling things. That it's just not going to work that way. She goes about life differently. Her feminine energy, she has a strong feminine energy, and she definitely goes a lot around her and about her life a lot differently than I do. So when she's in her emotions, right, and they're not making any sense, I just want her to make sense. I'm like, talk to me about this problem in a way that makes sense so that we can come up with a solution, right? Come to me, with the idea in mind that you and I together are going to find a solution and sort this problem out. And when she doesn't want to do that, my initial reaction is, you're fucking crazy. Come back and talk to me when you want to make sense and be a normal human being. And this failed over and over and over again. And in doing a little bit more reading and researching, my goal in my marriage and my relationship is not to be right. It's nice when I'm right, but it's really for the relationship to work and to flow, as if when my relationship is flowing and there's a good give and take back and forth, and sometimes it requires me to give a little bit more and sometimes it requires her to give it a little bit more. But as long as there's a good, healthy flow going on, it feels good. It's moving us in a common direction that we feel good about. But I can get so stuck on being right, and it doesn't get me anywhere.
Yeah, and the thing is, with everything, there's that balance, right? And then it's always going to be this dance of the masculine and the feminine. Mm-hmm. And we'll look at masculine and feminine as archetypes, okay? So feminine, the feminine archetype is, your emotional nature, right? Think about the water element where, it's just super powerful, just relentless, fucking whatever you can envision.
Flowing, ever-changing.
Flowing, ever-changing, can be like rapid, freaking turbulent whirlpools, or it can be a nice stream of river, or
you don't know.
You don't know, right? And then whereas like the masculine archetype is more of security, order, right? If you think of like this tree over here, right? The trunk of the tree, that's the masculine. That's keeping everything.
Just talking to the mic.
That's keeping everything rooted to the ground, right? That's the masculine archetype energy. And then the branches and the leaves flowing in the wind, that's the feminine, right? And in everything in nature, there's always going to be this dance, right? So when in relationships, it doesn't really matter whether it's, you know, heterosexual relationship or you know, two ladies or two dudes or whatever, there's always going to have to be that dance of masculine and feminine.
Right.
So if I'm in this like state of, oh, I'm in my feminine and I need to just like flow with my emotions and just let my emotions just fucking go, my partner, or I'm expecting my partner to step into his masculine.
Right.
But if he is this like super reactive nature, then he is not in his masculine. Right. Right. That's more of the feminine.
Yeah.
That's coming up.
So, as I understand it, and when it works well for me, is when you're in your emotions and they're not making a lot of sense to me. Really, what you're looking for is like a safe container, right? Like from what I find works is when she's really going through it. Is often I don't even have to say anything. Like I can just like, you know, approach her, put my arms around her and hold her, and not even say anything. Just let her know that she's safe, that she's loved, and it's okay to be however you got to be right now. You know, like I interpret it as she just wants to be seen, heard, and felt, and that's it. It doesn't want to be fixed. Just wants, if I'm fucking being crazy right now, let me be crazy, and I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be fixed. I don't even want to be taken out of this space. And yeah, when we do that for one another, it works quite well. Right?
Let's talk about when it doesn't work.
Okay, and when it doesn't work, it looks a lot different. Okay, so when it doesn't work, just recently, right? My wife is in the midst of building a project. She's been working on it extensively, hours a day on her own, putting together a course and really working her ass off. And, you know, it seemed like you had a little bit of doubt and fear creeping in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'll explain it from my point of view, and then I'll let you explain it from your point of view. So she starts getting like really emotional. I'll ask her what's wrong, because I can feel something's wrong. And then she starts saying something about having to do house chores and that's really getting in the way of her business. And I got offended, like, hey, wait a minute. My job right now is to be the provider and, you know, help you through this time where you're doing this stuff, and then your job is to kind of take care of that stuff while I'm doing this. That's been sort of our agreement. And so I felt that it was being implied that I'm not doing my job, or that I'm not living up to the standards that we set, and I felt like my position was being attacked. So I started telling her what was wrong. I'm like, wait a minute, what do you mean clean up after? What do I not clean up after? And so I start personalizing this, and it in the end, it had nothing to do with this at all, right? It had nothing to do with this at all. She was, you know, she starts crying, and I'm getting upset that she's crying because when I see women cry, it triggers me because of my childhood. Like seeing my mother cry, I get triggered when I see a woman cry. So it makes me angry because now I feel like there's something to fix that I can't fix because I'm the one that caused her to cry. So I'm taking responsibility for all these things that I didn't have to take responsibility for in the first place. I could have easily just listened to her say her piece, whether I agreed with it or not, recognized that she's going through something right now, and just kind of, you know, bend those firm roots and let her, for lack of a better term, just be fucking crazy right now, because it wasn't making no sense to me, right? And I use the word crazy real indiscriminately, so don't let this offend you. It's just it's for lack of a better word, I guess, emotional or just things I can't make sense of, right? And it got pretty fucking ugly. She she was crying. I mean, she's pretty good at crying, but she was crying like, she was fucking letting it rip. And and
can we like move on past the crying?
Well, okay, yeah. And so, where we were going wasn't working, you know. So, and I knew this. I could see this right now. So I was like, okay, do I want to keep going on being angry about how this made me felt? Oh, I could do that. I could turn this. I could make this about me. That's not going to get us any progress in the day. And you know, I had to start slowing it down. I had to calm my tone of voice down. I had to let her feel safe, first of all, right? Because my initial reaction to get excited doesn't let her feel safe. And if she doesn't feel safe, she's not going to actually tell me what's going on. So this is the fucking tricky part. For me, you may experience the same thing. The first most important thing that I have to do when I don't quite understand my wife's reactions is I have to make her feel safe. Nothing's going to be achieved without that. If I get reactive, she will not feel safe, and then the whole thing is going to be a fucking disaster, right? Eventually I'll have to do this anyway if I want to like talk to her again. So I may as well do it as quickly as possible. I don't always do it like that. I probably usually don't do it like that first, if I'm honest, but I have an awareness now. So my awareness says, okay, this is what's happening. Whew, let's take a step back. Let me speak calmly, right? And it took a while to kind of calm her down and get her to feel safe again. And, you know, a lot of it was just her some childhood shit about, you know, performing, achieving, and things maybe not.
Yeah, and I think it was like, it went both ways, right? Like what I heard from what you said, you know, in your account of what happened is that a lot of what came up for you was something similar to what you experienced in the past,
right? And
that is, you know, that is why we want to create that safety, right? Can I say a little bit about how like trauma works and the brain and like smoke detectors and all that? So like I've dived into a bit of research into, you know, understanding trauma, because I saw how this was showing up in our relationships. Like I couldn't help but be so freaking triggered by the things that you do or say, or even facial expressions, you know. But like in my head, I knew that you're not trying to hurt me, right? You want the best for me, but then I can't help to be brought back into, you know, the reactions that I would get when I was living at home with my family or whatever, right? Because what happens, first of all, when we talk about trauma, right, it doesn't have to be this super crazy event.
Right. It doesn't necessarily have to be like horrible abuse or blood and it could be that,
but it could be just like neglect. Like maybe like, you know, you were born as the third child, and then your younger sister was born only 2-3 years after you, and you felt like now you didn't have any more attention. That could be freaking traumatic, right? Like what household has this like completely perfect setting where all your emotional needs were addressed all the time? That's freaking impossible.
No, it's impossible.
Right? So, okay, we have to look at trauma as something that is, you know, it's not so rare, right? Like all of us have experienced trauma in some level. Right? So all of us have brains, and if, you know, you have a brain, this would probably happen to you as well. So in our brain, we have this part of our brain called the amygdala, which is the smoke detector, right? So it picks up things that we kind of like see, whether it's your facial expressions, sensations, stuff like that, and it all gets processed.
Picks up danger, right?
Yeah.
Or perceived danger.
Yeah, it picks up the stuff that the thalamus like stores in terms of like getting all these like images of like your facial expression. I see you frowning, or, you know, I feel it in my skin, it feels like, I don't know, goosebumps or whatever, right? And then my amygdala, as a smoke detector, picks this up and then alerts me whether I'm in danger, right? But the thing is, we also have a prefrontal cortex, which is the objective brain, right? Which tells us like what exactly is going on, like the rational brain, the logical brain. However, the signal doesn't go up there quickly. It goes straight to the reaction. So you get all your fight or flight responses first before you can actually make up what's actually going on in real time. So you're always going to be in that loop of reactions if you're not aware.
Right.
But, we have been doing the work over the past couple of years of doing stuff like mindfulness meditation, mindful movement, breath work, and that all helps with that response. It stops us from being so reactive, and us being able to step into the prefrontal cortex and actually see. The prefrontal cortex is kind of like the watchtower, right? The medial prefrontal cortex. So you're able to like see from an objective view like what's actually going on, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So
I've read this like a bunch of times, but I can't memorize it. Like she's a lot smarter than I am.
No, this is from The Body Keeps the Score from Bessel van der Kolk, but super fascinating stuff. I recommend that you guys.
I think they talk about that in Fuck Your Feelings as well. Two good books.
So like that initial reaction is usually just like these like old stories that that constantly keep replaying, because in the past like that kind of like emotional connection of like safety and that you're able to express your feelings in a safe manner wasn't there.
Right
in the past, when I saw these facial expressions from my parents, I thought I wasn't safe, so I'll shut down. I'll just start crying, right? And in the past when I cried, I would get attention and get some love, right? So that all repeats. I guess like in a sense when this happens, it's important for us to realize that when we're in this like confrontational like situations where we're just like kind of like attacking each other, that's not good for any of us, because then we're putting both of us into these like little boy or little girl states of
there's no safety for either of us.
Right, and sometimes we can't fucking like solve it right away, right? Sometimes you have to go take a walk, and I need to go hang out with my friends and like talk it out with my friends, and then I'm able to go into the watchtower and look at this again and like, objectively, this is what happened, and I was wrong in this regard, and you were wrong in this regard, and we can like come to an understanding, but no one is at fault. Right.
Yeah. So when we had the situation going on last week, what, explain what was really going on and like how so badly I misconstrued the situation.
I was just overwhelmed, and you asked me what was wrong, and I told you, I have a hard time sometimes like explaining myself too, just because when I'm like overwhelmed, it's like bottleneck in traffic. There's so many cars going, and like what comes out is like not what I want to say. So you misconstrued some of the stuff that I was saying as attacking. When I heard that you asked me what was wrong, and then me seeing you get mad was just like super confusing. Like I thought it was a safe space, and then once you started getting like defensive and angry or whatever, I felt like it wasn't a safe space anymore. Right. That was really the bulk of it.
And that is where I get triggered, because like one of my things is anytime the abuse of women and stuff like that, it really fucking bothers me. Right, like I could not stomach putting my hands on a woman in such a fashion or being abusive like that, and so to see my wife cry and like feel like I'm responsible for it, it like feels like I as a man that I failed, right? And in this situation, I mean, it's probably a little bit of a stretch, but that's just where my head goes. It's like a real man wouldn't do this, So, but I am a flawed man, and I'm learning, and I'm doing my best to like, navigate these spaces, and it's not easy. This stuff is really not easy. It takes a tremendous amount of awareness to like stop and be still and recognize what's going on. And like, I think where I see a lot of people have trouble with this is they cannot get out of the reactive stuff, right? And so, like, if I want to really have like a deepening relationship with my wife and a deepening understanding, we can't go to those deep places like if we can't be safe, because if she doesn't feel safe to let me see all of her, right, the good and the bad part. So it's like, okay, we're gonna be married. That means we're gonna be together forever. That's the plan, right? Okay, so until I die first, and then so as we get to know one another, right, I have to see all of you, right? The dark parts, the fucking screaming on the floor, crying, snot bubbles, fucking that part of you, right? The ugly cry, like that part of it. I have to let you see me cry. I have to let you see me be weak and be walk through the fear of being judged or abandoned. So you have two people with severe emotional abandonment issues, right? So it leads us to be reactive oftentimes. And so, like, understanding that, okay, we're both dealing with something quite similar, right? Even though our traumas look completely different. Yeah. Right? Even though our experience, our childhoods look completely different. I was the firstborn. I was doted over, like, still probably, you know, to a degree, but I just got fucked up in the game somewhere. Somewhere along the line there was just too much abuse and craziness going on around me, and my house just wasn't safe. Yours was a lot different.
Yeah,
you know?
Mine was more around, I guess, like neglect, and then being a little kid, trying to figure shit out on my own, and just looking for love in the wrong places.
Yeah, and so, you know, we're together, and in deepening our relationship, it's like, okay, I see that, and I'm willing to grow along those lines with you, and vice versa, you know. But none of that happens. Like, do I want to be in a relationship with somebody that can't see all of me? Do I want to be in a marriage with somebody that only likes certain parts of me, right? That can't love me through the shitty parts of myself? That's not really a marriage, in my opinion. That's not love. That's not a relationship. I don't even want friendships like that. Like, today, the friendships I want are my friends that can see that I'm flawed, you know, and hold me accountable to grow through that, you know, and also, provide a place where they're not going to judge me. Like, hey man, you fucked up, but it's all right, you know, just like, you know, work through that. And that's the circle of people that I like to surround myself. That's literally how I'm trying to build every relationship around me, business, otherwise. Like, I don't want to be around people that I can't be flawed. Because I'm so flawed. I'm so fucked up.
Yeah, and that's another big part of creating this safe environment too, is accountability. Right. And humility too, right? Accountability that, you know, I'm not fucking perfect all the time.
Right.
I can't blame you for everything. Everything that's, you know, gone wrong. Like, that trauma that I'm replaying, that's up to me to heal and to figure out how to, you know, be better from that, and to show up better and not repeat the same things that I've experienced in the past relationships in my childhood, into this thing that I want to build with you. And that's on me, right? Yeah. If I want to show up to be the best version of me that I can be, I gotta own up to that. Yeah. And I gotta be okay with being wrong sometimes. You know?
Yeah, I'm wrong all the time. I don't want this to get construed, because, you know, a big part of my philosophy in life is strength, right? And when I talk about strength, it's not who can lift the most weights, right? It's are you climbing up the ladder, trying to improve your position? And this is from my friend Master Chim, who's a real inspirational guy to me, but he talks about this all the time. It doesn't matter where you are on the ladder. It just matters that you're climbing, right? Whatever fucking rung you're on, if you're climbing, you're pursuing strength, right? You're trying to get stronger. I got time for you. If you're on the ladder climbing, I got time for you. I don't care if you're on the fucking first rung. If you're trying to get to that, if you're just trying to get on the ladder, period, I got time for you, right? If you ain't trying to get on the ladder, if you're refusing to get on the ladder, I don't got a lot of space for that personally at this point in my life. And so, you know, I don't want it to sound like part of this is also is that we have to be accountable. So it's not like if you're doing something that's unacceptable, you know, like because I also have boundaries, right? So part of this is I have boundaries, and I've had to use them before, like, you know, and it's not always comfortable. Sometimes I say, your behavior right now is unacceptable to me. I will not be treated that way. This is where I draw a line. So I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you that I will not tolerate that. and I have to do that. Rarely do I have to do that with you, but in my life in general, this is how I will be treated. I will not be treated any less than this. I have a standard that I have set, and that's how I keep people accountable, and I'm accountable for how people treat me, right? If someone crosses a line and crosses a boundary, and I don't feel like this is going to be conducive to growing, like, cool, man, like, you could do whatever you want to do, just not towards me, and do it somewhere else, somewhere cool, So we don't put up with nonsense from each other that's abusive or hurtful, right? It's almost, I can't even think of a time we've intentionally tried to hurt one another, right? No, we get reactive, right? We can get selfish and stuff like that, but never hurtful. That's I would, that's unacceptable to me, right? So it's not, when I'm usually saying keep people safe, I'm not talking about safe spaces in college. I don't expect the world to walk on its tippy toes to accommodate my needs, right? I have to understand that sometimes things are going to go a certain way, and I got to deal with it, But if I'm trying to get intimate with a person, right, I have to let them feel safe. I'm not trying to get intimate with the whole world. But with my wife and my friends and my close friends, there is a level of intimacy that I want. I don't want fly-by friends, I've got tons of acquaintances from my career and traveling around the world and doing stuff like that. I've got tons of acquaintances, and it's great. I'll give you a handshake, I'll say what's up, and we'll move on. But my close friendships, the people that are close to me, these are the people that I'm trying to build with, right? Not just my wife, but my friends. These are the people that I'm trying to build with. And so, yes, I will hold them to a certain standard, and I will try to provide a space, because if we're trying to build together, you're going to let me down at some point, and that's okay. And I'm going to let you down too. And I got to give you the room to do that. And I'm going to ask you to give me the room to mess up sometimes. And not, beat me over the head when that happens. Yeah. So it probably sounds a little bit intense to some people, but the opposite for me is to be reactive towards my wife and the people around me, to hold people to standards that they can't always, live up to, and be very alone.
Yeah. You wanna share some examples of like maybe past relationships where you're not able to feel safe, or
I never got that invested. I never had to work on this before you, to be honest. Like, the women that I had in my life prior to you, they were there to make me feel a certain way, right? Or look a certain way.
Yeah.
Right? So as long as you were pretty smart and I could bring you out and my friends would give me a high five, for such a good hunt, then I was, I was cool with it. But it wasn't going to last long. I probably wasn't even going to let you sleep over. And it wasn't going to get that deep.
Yeah.
It just never got that deep. I wouldn't allow it to. I wasn't looking for that.
Yeah, definitely have seen myself, like, the real work of like really showing up in a relationship and really exposing like my humanness to another person only showed up in my relationship with you as well, right? Because like it can be so easy to like, live through those like loops of reactions and like, this person is not right for me because like they're abusive, blah blah blah, and I'm just gonna find someone else. But then the more that I'm just like blaming this person, the more that thing just fucking repeats, because I'm not really looking at the source of the issue, right? Which is like this trauma that I haven't really dealt with, and like I can't be like, hey, this is, in the past, this is what happened to me, so that's why when you say this or when you do this, this brings me up the past, and it can be really scary to share this information with another person. But I think this is, it's a really important part in relationship to really like uncover all the fucking darkness and the crevices of your freaking soul, right?
Yeah. I mean, fuck. We've been married a little bit over a year. We just celebrated our first wedding anniversary, I think last Saturday, right? And it's been a lot better. Like, and I talked about this on the last podcast, but the first the first half of the year was really difficult, and going through the immigration process on top of both like getting pretty deep into some spiritual work on some old wounds and stuff like that was difficult. And most days it's a lot better right now. Like the difficult thing is me dealing with, I'm currently experiencing some health stuff where I'm not sleeping well, and it's not allowing me to recover. So I got to go get some blood work to see if I'm deficient in something and why I can't get some sleep. But sometimes I'm depleted because I'm giving energy out all day long, and to athletes, to people that I'm mentoring in certain things, and business efforts, and all different kinds of things. And sometimes I get home at night, I don't have any energy to give to my wife, and I get anxiety about that. On top of the anxiety that I experience just from being run into the floor from just doing too much, and so like she's left sometimes without an actual partner there, and it's and I know that I'm not showing up, and it bothers me. It puts me in a lot of fear, and it's been putting me in a ton of fear lately. And so I'll speak a little bit about the experience we kind of just had, and you can kind of share your experience with some stuff. So, Friday this last week I really pushed it hard, and my body was just redlined, and I started having like intense feelings of anxiety, borderline panic, and I keep a good poker face so people won't know that it's going on. But I've learned how to live life even with this going on, show up and get things done. And even though I'm fucking dying on the inside, I'll show up and get the job done. So I got this going on, and her and I think, get into a little bit of a... Did we get into an argument on Friday when you went out with your friends?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, maybe
after.
Perhaps after. Yeah. So in the she comes home late. She was out with having a girls' night, and I'm home. I'm in bed already, and I'm in an intense anxiety to the point I don't even want to be near her because I can't be present to her, and all the anxiety that I'm having about not being able to show up because it's kind of like, it's just this like feedback loop, right? So I'm experiencing anxiety from being run down. I'm also experiencing it from knowing that I'm not showing up the way I would like to at this current moment because for whatever reason, I'm experiencing a difficult time with whatever's going on with my ability to recover from my days. And I wake up Saturday morning and I'm pretty much in a near panic attack. I'm questioning my sanity, and I'm like kind of like hyperventilating next to her, and I just like pulled her aside and said, "Hey, we have to have a conversation." And I had to let her know exactly where I was at. I said, "I'm in so much fear that because of the way I am, that you're gonna get tired of me and abandon me, and I'm constantly walking on eggshells because I'm afraid. And I'm afraid of your reactions if I don't do everything right. And I'm afraid of what happens if, just a simple thing like if there's no groceries in the house that I have to go get them because you will get upset that you have to walk down to the corner store, right? And we'll get into why in a bit, because I think that's really interesting. If you don't mind sharing that, I think it's really powerful. But so I'm explaining, I got all this reactive stuff going on, and it's fucking killing me inside. On top of everything else that I have going on, like this is really like the icing on the cake. And I'm like feeling this terrible sense of abandonment about to happen. It was really overwhelming, and so has a really hard time with me telling her this, and she's pretty shaken up about it. And I just start telling her that, sometimes I'm not going to be on my A game, and I need to feel safe to tell you that I'm not going to be on my A game. And if that means that I forgot to go to the store and you have to walk down to the store, then please just do that without making me feel like, and I shouldn't use the word making me feel, but yeah, that's how I felt, like I'm being made to feel like I'm not keeping up my end of the deal as a husband. And then you shared something with me, like why you're so adverse to walking to the store by yourself.
Yeah, I think that only like came to me too, like after like everything's like calmed down and we kind of reached an understanding. And like one of the reasons why that like seemingly very simple tasks is very difficult for me is because like when I was 8 years old, like I was walking near the supermarket with my parents, and my parents were in front of me. We were walking past a coffee shop, and some like coffee shop uncle just like groped my butt as like an 8-year-old, right? And like as a child, I was like, holy shit, like my parents are right there, but like I can't say anything out of fear, and you know, obviously there was like a lot of shame around it too. So you know, that was something that I carried with me for all this time that I didn't even know was there, that I didn't even know was still showing up in my life right now.
Yeah.
And then you know, I told you about it, and then you have like a deeper understanding of that. Like, yes, like, you know,
because I couldn't figure, because you would get really annoyed if I asked you to go to the store, and I'm like, it's fucking
well,
like,
I would still go eventually. It would just
right,
take me a really
but
long
I'm like,
time.
it's 2 blocks away, so I couldn't understand, you know what I mean? It didn't make sense to me until you explained to me, oh, like you have some, like you were, you know, basically like molested, you know, in a sense, or groped, or whatever you want to call that, by an old man when you're 8 years old. I'm pretty sure it's you know, it's fucked up somehow. Whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I didn't know that. And I didn't know that I didn't know that was still coming up for me too. So I don't know, sometimes, like, you know, when we kind of iron out these things and, you know, begin to talk about it in a safe place, like, you know, that kind of stuff like that becomes clear, and then we reach a deeper understanding on those things. I could definitely say that, like, after that conversation, I felt so much, like, safer in the relationship.
And in the past, like, bringing that up was like, I don't want to fucking talk about it because it's fucking like shameful, or like, you know, it's a fucking like easy task. I'm fucking a grown ass woman that can't go to the store, like right away. I have to take like an hour to like prepare myself to leave the house. You know, and that's not something that's like fun to admit, but like,
no. And I think the tone of the conversation like allowed for us both to just kind of let it out, like lay the cards out safely. You know, like it's hard for me to admit that I'm weak at certain times, or I feel weak, or vulnerable, you know, like that I don't feel powerful, because, you know, a big part of my day is being a mentor to people, right? And to and I think I have, like, I assign myself certain roles that have, you know, or a certain way that I have to behave that's acceptable, and, you know, I don't have it all together, you know, and my ego wants everybody to think, and wants to think that I have it all together. My ego wants to think, yeah, I got fucking life figured out. I mean, but that's not the truth, man. The truth is,
I don't know anything.
If I don't, I suffer so badly if I don't do work. And so I just do work, because the opposite for me is to suffer immensely, you know, and so in doing that much work and figuring out how not to suffer so much through life, you fucking learn a couple things. And I'm, you know, God gave me the ability to explain those things half decent. And so that's what I do. And it may sound like, because I've figured a few things out, that maybe I've figured everything out, but I certainly haven't. And
there's so many layers to
there's
it, right?
So many fucking layers. And you know, I hold myself to a standard I think that no one else is holding me to. You know, and if they are holding it to me, please don't, because I definitely will let you down at one point or another. I'm an extremely flawed human being, and I'm literally like everybody else. I'm just doing my best, right? But it's so hard to like admit that out loud.
And also like learning how to ask for help when I need. You know, that used to be one of like my biggest problems, is to ask for help. And, you know, that has kept me stuck and alone and, you know, kind of isolated for a really long time. But then learning to ask for help has been, like, the biggest game changer, because I can't figure shit out on my own. I need people. Like, humans need people. You know, we need that community. We need that sense of safety and social engagement, you know, to be able to function as normal human beings.
Right.
Or functional human beings, or human beings that are able to be of service to other people.
Right.
How are you going to be of service to other people if you're not around other people? You're trying to avoid other people, or like trying to do everything on your own.
Yeah, living in scarcity, it's like it's impossible to be of service if I'm in scarcity. And scarcity, if not being able to ask for help, is living in scarcity.
Yeah.
Because there's abundant amount of help out there, and just because I can't do it all doesn't, like being able to ask, right?
Yeah, then
That's a huge tool. Yeah, I get.
Then I get somewhere. I'm not in this space of like, oh, I don't know anything, I'm just a failure.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna stay here, and it's kind of like this, like even just like saying it makes me want to like curl up into
withdraw.
like fetal position and like not do anything, right? But if I'm like asking for help, that gives me like more options to like grow.
It really is a fucking brave thing to ask for help. I feel like the way the world is set up today, it's like such a shameful thing to admit that you don't got it all figured out. That, you know what, man, I'm fucking struggling. I need help. I'm fucking hurting right now. I'm really, I can't do this by myself. I'm willing to work. It's not that I'm not willing. I'm not trying. I don't see the next step to take. Can you show me the next step to take? Can you help me take the next step? Yeah,
listen, man, like this past year I've ugly cried in front of so many like people that, compared to like the rest of my life, but like it has propelled me into so much growth just because I allowed myself to be vulnerable around people.
Yeah.
And people saw the real me, right? And people were able to help me.
Yeah.
Like in the way that I need it.
Yeah.
And then the world becomes a fucking less scary place. It becomes a world full of more opportunities and more options and more paths to my growth.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel fucking lonely.
Yeah. Yeah, I think once people see you let your guard down, they kind of let their guard down too.
Exactly.
It's very disarming to see somebody like, oh, that person's like showing up authentically, like really just letting themselves out there. Like it kind of makes me feel, okay, wow, I want to do the same thing. I want to just be who I am right now too. Like even if it means showing that I'm hurting, or I don't have all the answers right now, or I need help, or or whatever have you.
Yeah, because you're honoring your truth.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I want to live my life to be, just like rooted in my truth and my authentic self, so that I don't have to like waste energy trying to be someone else or be a certain way that is not me.
Right. Yeah, and in the Instagram age, I mean, it's not a common thing to see authenticity. You get a lot of highlights.
Yeah, everybody wants to be fucking Kim Kardashian.
Yeah, and a lot of none of the low lights or the times where you're not looking good, or the hardships that go on.
Yeah,
the
or
things
like when you post that stuff, it doesn't get very much traction, or people unfollow. Like, I don't want to see this shit.
Yeah.
But that's fine. People are doing the best they can with the current level of awareness that they have, and that's cool. But yeah, I certainly would like to have a community of like just be around people who are true to themselves.
Yeah.
Then
I feel like we're slowly growing that.
Yeah.
Slowly growing that in business and friendships and all around, just slowly starting to grow a community of people who are just kind of showing up as themselves, and people who are looking to get on the ladder and climb and build and do all those things. So I think we'll just to kind of wrap up, guys, if you haven't read David Deida, and I'm apologize if I'm spelling his name wrong, Way of the Superior Man, I would strongly recommend that read.
The one for females is
called the one for
Dear
females.
Lover.
Yeah, Dear Lover for females, right? Explains the masculine feminine dynamics really, really well. And it's just, we are not the same. And to act like we're the same is insane. It's a crazy thing to think that there's no difference between the male and female energy. I think the crime of it is to not think that the feminine energy isn't just as important as the masculine energy, right? I think like femininity, in an effort to be equal, right? Like femininity seems like it's been pushed down. Like we have to act masculine in order to gain.
vulnerability is a weakness.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, in the past year, that's what I've learned more than anything, is that vulnerability is one of the greatest tools of power that you can have. And you said something the other day I thought that was interesting, that you see a lot of women, because a lot of men can't hold space, so you see women kind of getting in relationships with more feminine men that can hold space a little bit better, but they're missing that masculine sense and coming out dissatisfied. You said something to that effect the other day. Do you remember having that conversation?
I don't know exactly what I said around that. I don't think it was like a over generalization of like all women are
No, it was like an observation that you made.
I can't remember.
Okay, never mind. It was an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
But I think the point that I was just having is that it's super important to value both, right? To value the feminine just as much as we value the masculine. That balance is crucial. And I think the minute that things go out of balance, I think I know I'm headed for trouble. If I don't honor both, I'm headed for trouble, and I traditionally haven't, you know. So I think it's a really important thing. So yeah, man, do yourself a favor. If you're a man and you have trouble understanding your lady when she's going through it, like the ability to hold space, the ability to just put your arms around her and not say a word and let her feel safe is so fucking valuable. She will love you for it. Your relationship, I guarantee, will deepen because of it. And it's fucking hard, man. It's something that, if you're like me, you're gonna fail at it. And hopefully you're better than me at it. I really hope that you are, because I'm terrible at it. But with work, it can have great effect on your relationship.
And if you want to get a little bit more sciencey and understand, and if anything about the trauma part that we talked about resonates with you, and you want to learn a little bit more about how your brain works, so you can actually understand what the fuck is going on when these things happen, I would recommend The Body Keeps a Score by Bessel van der Kolk, just to take a read about, you know, trauma. And there's a part in the book that talks about relationships and how trauma shows up in relationships as well. So it'll be a really helpful thing for you to read.
All right. And I think that's it for this episode. I'm sure we'll have you back on in a couple weeks to share more of our adventures and misadventures as we go through this, as we go through our marriage and life. To the listeners, please, as always, like, subscribe, comment, share. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, Breaker, and YouTube. Please get the word out. We are growing this from scratch. We really feel like if you find our message helpful, right, tell a friend. If you think they'll find this helpful, please share it, like it, comment, let us know what you want to hear more of, and we will see you guys next time.
Peace.